At the end of the last year, we started speaking about a little bit of introductory words before we start speaking about Gehenim and Olam Haba. We wanted to speak about introductory words, which is a general idea about the belief in the next world. Like I said, maybe we don't need it, but it's good A for chizuk for us, and B for anyone who has a question about it. It's not for mine. Okay, basically what we spoke about last time was the famous mashal of twins inside the stomach. I went in detail about that, and we mentioned how we are always learning more about different galaxies, etc. And there's the obvious proof that sometimes you can't see everything that there is, and things are vast and always explosive. Okay? Now, if you look at the world as just a means of life, if just life and that's all there is, and then after the world there is nothing else, then we are in essence a walking time bomb. Okay, that's basically what we are. My wife actually had a relative who unfortunately had leukemia, and I remember walking with him one Shabbat, and he was telling me, in essence, I'm really a walking time bomb. That's what he said to me. Because unfortunately he had it, and he had remission, and came back unfortunately. And I told him, and I think it made him feel better to a certain extent, I said, we really are all walking time bombs, right? That's really what it is. We're all on our way out. We don't know when, we don't know who, and we don't know how long it is. Just, you think that it's faster because they found something, it doesn't really make a difference. I think it was hopeful, but al kopanim, it's true. Okay? To a certain extent, we all are in a certain extent. Now, I don't mean to be morbid. It's not nice to say that we're always in such a way, but if you change life from being an end as opposed to a means, like we mentioned, it's a gesher hachaim. It's a bridge to life. You start with life. You have a lifetime period, and then one person dies and moves to the next world. It's a transformation, hachlafa. We're going from one world to the next, and therefore it's a little bit less morbid, if you will, but it's a lot more than that. It leads us with a purpose. We know that there is much more because we're here as a thing. Chazal tell us, the rabbis tell us, rasha, afilu b'chayav, a rasha, an evil person, even when he's alive, is met, he's dead, which is a strange statement. What do you mean he's dead? He's alive. He looks like he's moving, he looks like he's going. So the truth is what they say, even though he's moving, he's like a zanav shaleta'ah, he's like the tail of a lizard. When you cut off the tail of a lizard, ever see it? It's unbelievable. It keeps twitching and twitching. So he says a rush is the same thing. He's just twitching. It looks like he's moving. It looks like he has something to him, but he's not really alive. It's a very strange phenomenon. It doesn't sound so pretty, but he's just twitching. He's not really alive. What's that mean? He can't do anything on his own. The answer is, that's what you're saying?
He doesn't do anything. He's not toilet.
Nothing toilet. So the answer is, al derech, what Yehuda is saying, right? Very similar to this idea, but what we're trying to point out here, it's something alive. Ubecharta b'chaim is when you have b'chira, when you do something productive, when you choose between one thing and the next. So that shows life. The famous mashal that they bring, the mashal is brought from the Mishgiach in Rosh Shimon Shkop's yeshiva. He was bringing this mashal is, how do you know when a fish is dead or alive inside of a river? When he's going downstream with everybody else, with all the other fish, he could be just as dead as anything. He's not alive. You know he's alive when he's going upstream, when he's going against the current, so that's when you know that there is real life. When there's b'chira, so then there's life. Don't get bluffed. Don't get faked by the external appearance, what seems outside. Mar'eh chitzoni, don't get faked by that, because it's what we call in Hebrew an ashlaya. It's not true. It's a bluff. It looks like it. And the perfect example I have of this is an obvious example. You're willing to spend a good 50 shekel on a nice set of flowers because they look very pretty. However, as we all know, those flowers are incredibly dead. They're cut off. They have no connection to life. They look pretty, they're fake, and we all know within a couple weeks they're going to wither. Baruch Hashem, my wife is of the same opinion as me on this one, and we never have to buy flowers. I got saved on that one. We don't have to do that because the flowers are just useless. She's not interested in these useless flowers, which we know you buy them, and then within a week, they smell, and you have to dump them, and they're not interesting. There's nothing too exciting about it. Okay, you'll tell me for the week it's nice, I understand. Okay, but I'll go upon him.
You keep it in water.
That's it. You keep it in water, but it still dies. But the beautiful flowers, but they're still dead. They're beautiful, but they're dead. You understand? That's all I'm trying to point out. As opposed to in this, yes, my wife does like these live flowers that are in pots with dirt. They end up being cheaper than the other flowers for some strange reason, right? So they don't look as nice. They're not as bright, but they're alive. They're there. They stay around, kind of, right? They stay around to a certain extent, right? Because that's alive. It has a certain chiyut. You understand? That's the difference. So that's what it means. Rasha afilu b'chayav metu. He's still dead, even when he's alive, because he's not moving. He's not productive. He's not going anywhere. He's finished. Wherever he is. He's not changing. Wherever he's standing, that's where he is. You understand what I'm saying? This is the reason why, and I think this is also a good example, because people have this feeling of not being alive. If you're not doing something productive, if you're not doing something with a purpose, with what we call a ya'ad, so you really have a certain feeling of death. So people will be upset at me, whoever hears this, and say, that's not true, I don't feel that way. But I'll show you a very good proof of this. One of the big pastimes of these days is to do crazy nutso things, such as jumping off of bridges, like bungee jumping, or parachuting out of planes, which are completely, right? And there's an incredible amount of different stunts that they're always trying to think of different things. Some people jump off of cliffs that are, a certain amount of height, and they have a parachute because it's much closer to the ground, so it's much more adventurous. I've seen a couple of these. I've even heard extreme sports is called? What? Extreme sports, okay, that's what it's called. And I've even heard there was a new innovation not so long ago of that you can go, you swim in the ocean, you go as deep as without any air things, you go as deep as, and you have a vacuum packed thing in your suit or whatever, and you pop it, and then it shoots you up to the top of the air, to the top of the water, because then all of a sudden, boom, it fills you to the top of the thing. You go, your nose is bleeding, and then boom, and then you get shot up to the top. What exactly is the Yetzer Hara here? I'm trying to figure it out, right? What is it?
50-50, which direction is
50-50. If you like it, right? What are they? You pay money for these things. This is exciting. Where is this coming from? But the answer is because when a person, follow me, doesn't feel life, chaser lo chayim, he doesn't feel life, he wants to get as close to death as possible, and then, oh wow, you felt a little bit of life. Oh, it got you a little bit resurrected. You felt a little bit alive for a few minutes. When you fall out of a plane for those few minutes, and you're free falling, without a thing, and you have a certain thing, there's a certain feeling of chiyut, because you're so close to death, that's the only way to feel life, when you get close to the opposite. So then you suddenly feel a breath of life. That's what happens. So that's what happens. Or what?
Like cheating death.
Like cheating death, exactly. It's a type of fake death, exactly. Right? Like we said, that someone would say we try out to do near-death experiences, right? Someone tries to get himself to the stage, and come back. It's fun. Right? But that's the truth. And when a person is not exciting himself because he doesn't have a purpose in his life, he doesn't have Torah, he doesn't have a purpose, he doesn't have what we call a ya'ad, a tachlit, a direction in his life. So he has to make himself excited, to wake himself up, to make him happy. This brings another interpretation to the idea of, we know what we call carpe diem. Eat, drink, and be happy, for tomorrow we will die. Achol v'shata. Right? Ki lemachar namut. Right? We're familiar with the expression. Eat and drink and be happy. So usually the idea is enjoy yourself now and tomorrow you're going to die. But there's a deeper idea, which is not just eat, drink because tomorrow you die. Because if you stop eating and drinking, you will be dead today. I don't mean because of the lack of food. I mean you need to busy yourself always with busy things in this world. Keep yourself busy. Keep yourself with eating and drinking and running around and enjoying yourself. And constantly keep yourself entertained. Because if not, suddenly you'll find yourself dead. Right? If you're not constantly busying yourself, if you're not constantly eating and drinking, if you're not carpe diem, then we will be dead. For tomorrow we will be dead. Then the death will suddenly come upon you. So every day you're busy trying to run around to busy yourself to make sure, got a new sports car, a new type of thing, right? In order to make sure that you keep yourself alive. Okay? That's a certain type of she'ifah. That's what we're talking about. Another innovation, another idea that we see from here, this I saw in Gesher Chaim, this idea, and it's very true, is we find that a person personally feels this idea that he wants to be alive forever. Everybody naturally has this feeling of being alive, wanting to be alive forever, meaning the neshama within us always wants to be alive forever. What's a raya? What's a proof for this? Even an atheist, okay? By us, we know there's Olam Haba, we're trying to earn our Olam Haba, we're trying to do what we can, right? But even a guy who doesn't believe in the next world, who doesn't believe in God or any of the source, what will he do? He will work very hard to keep his name alive, to have his name plastered on a room in a hospital, right? He'll pay a lot of money so that his name will have a big picture with a picture of him, or something, to be able to have himself on a thing, right? So that everybody should remember him from Netzach. Or in this country, the big thing, you get your name on a street, right? That's what happened to this street, right? The hardest job in this country is to be Hatzalah, to work with the ambulance, because every city has the name street names. They're all the same street names. They're all Jabotinsky, the names of all the prime ministers and all the things. They all have the names of all the. So they have a big problem almost figuring out which street is which. Right? The Waze gets all confused. It's like a big issue. But I'm saying people would love to get their name on a street name to be able to do that. Or, especially what's a big thing these days now that there's internet, is everyone tries to make a new song. I want my one song that people will remember me forever, that this is his song. I'm always trying to implant their name. Maybe it's writing a book, trying to get my name some way, one or the other. I always want to do. Now, for us little people, Baruch Hashem, we have it in the right way, because if we're Shaku and Torah, then we know we're making our implant. When you're busy yourself learning, whatever you do, it doesn't matter if people know about you or not, it's all forgotten. We all know everything we do is forgotten by people. But it's the only implant that's left is by the Ribono Shel Olam. Hashem remembers every little detail, which we're going to speak about. But at least, or some people at least, what they're trying to do is what? Okay, so that's why everybody has their 0.8 kids, okay? Or 1.2 kids, right? Why do people have their 1.2 kids? Because they want that one kid. I want that one kid. I want one little kid at least to keep my name around, to remember me, to follow me, to have a little bit of a trace. People don't usually have two kids. Once in a while, there's an exception. They won't have two kids. That already means I have to start giving to them and do stuff that's annoying. That's already I have to do things. That's already frustrating. But you want that one kid at least to be able to continue my tradition, to have my name, and that's why it's a little bit more exciting to have a boy, right? Because a little bit more he keeps the Rosham, he keeps the name, etc., etc. That's where this comes from. So there is a feeling pnimi in a person. There's an internal feeling inside of a person that he wants a nitzchiyut, that he wants to live, and that comes from what we're speaking about, and that we're going to speak about, the neshama, the soul, the spirit that you have within your body, the neshama within the goof, that internally always wants to live on. You understand? So if you believe in the Torah, you believe when I do a mitzvah, when I do something it lasts forever, as a tabaseder, you're misudar, you're okay. But if I don't believe in this stuff, so I try to find other ways to keep myself alive, to make sure I last forever. I try to do things, like I mentioned last week about Walt Disney, who tries to freeze himself in a body. He frees himself in a freezer, right? He puts his body in a freezer. Why? Because that way, I'm still around. I don't want to stop. I want to be around still. I don't want to disappear. You understand? It's a certain type of argasha. Let me be here just a little bit more. Okay, so that's the idea that we say. The Gemara in Brachot brings that Rabbi Yochanan, whenever we would finish Sefer Eov, would say this pasuk in Kohelet: Sof Adam lamut, v'sof behema l'shchita. The person's going to die, a behem is going to be shechted, ve'akol amita emomdim. Pretty gory pasuk, I understand. Everybody's going to the same place. We all go. But ashrei mi shegadal b'Torah ve'amlo b'Torah. Happy is the person who gives nachat ruach to his yotzer, to the learns Torah, and busies himself with a good thing. Tov shem mishem and tov. It's better to be able to leave a good impression with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to do the right thing in order to do that. Because such a person will always remember death. By remembering death, you'll know that there's a purpose for life. It gives me a reason why I'm here. I want those last years in order to be able to do something, to make an impression, a real impression. You follow me? You understand? There's a certain hasaga of trying to remember death. Why do people ignore death? Many people don't want to speak about death. Like I said, some people don't enjoy coming to the shir, right? There's a certain people are afraid to talk about death, or to learn about death, or to hear about it, because they're afraid to hear it. Every time they go to a funeral, to a levaya, they look at the guy in the kever and they go, see, again, it wasn't me, right? It wasn't me again. I seem to be okay. I'm going to be okay. Baruch Hashem, right? Every time you go to another funeral, you look at a funeral and you say, I'm still here, right? A lot of times that's how a person looks at it, and that's how it is. There's a Maisa with Rav Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld. He was the Rav of Yerushalayim in the early 1900s. In the early 1900s. And at the end of his days, he was in the hospital, and he was actually they found something within him, and the doctor had a very worried look on his face. So Rabbi Sonnenfeld said to the doctor, I would like to know what the diagnosis is. I spoke about it today, this morning. The same idea. Are you allowed to tell your parents if he has a bad diagnosis, chas v'shalom, are you allowed to tell him? Or is that Isser of Kibud Aveim to tell him if he's not going to live, etc.? So the doctor said, it's okay, don't worry, I'll call you Stader. I don't want to. He was brushing him off. Right? He said, I don't want to scare you or anything like that. So Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld told the doctor this story. He said there was a certain Chassid, he says it was a Chabad Chassid, in Bolshevik Russia, during the time of the Bolsheviks, that he was teaching Torah. He was teaching Torah to students, etc., and he was caught. And they were trying to get him to admit it, that he was doing it. So the KGB guy took his gun and pointed it at this Chassid, and he told him, this kli, this utensil, has already changed the minds of many people. It has already been able to change the mind of many people. L'shanot da'atam. So he looked back at him, he said, that toy that you're carrying can only change the mind of someone who has two gods and one world. Who has two gods and one world. But since I have one God and two worlds, it doesn't affect me at all. It doesn't scare me at all. With a person with one God and two worlds, it doesn't affect me at all. So that's what Rabbi Yosef Chaim told the doctor. He said, I'm a person with one Hashem and two worlds. And if I know what's right, it's right, and it's okay. So the doctor told him his diagnosis. He didn't have very much long to live. And he had a couple, 2, 3, 4 months. He actually got more months, they say. And he chazard shas 6 times in that period of time. He was able to chazard shas 6 times in that number of months, which I don't know exactly how many it is. I think it was 5, 6 months. I don't know exactly. In that order of time. Oh, see what happens? When a goy finds out he's got 5, 6 months. Just recently I know a story of a friend of mine who is married to a Gioret. He's married to a Gioret. And also, one of her parents found out that she doesn't have so much longer to live. So what did they do? They rented a caravan. What do you call those trailer tractors? No, what do you call them? RVs. They went. They had an RV, and they said, "No, I have a few months to live. Let's take a trip around the United States, to the Grand Canyon, and we'll go what? Chaparite, as they say, take advantage, right? I'm only here for a few months." So they went in an RV, and then, they decided to take a trip around the United States. I think somewhere in the middle, that's when she dropped dead. But, some even the Grand Canyon. I don't know, that's okay. Everybody lives the end of their life, they want to live it. If you have a tachlit, if that's your tachlit, so you live the last lane just to be able to, that's it. Right? As opposed to, if there's a little bit more of a purpose, he finished Shas 6 times and able to do that. He was prepared for his mifchan, for his test, and Olam Haba. It's all the difference in the world. It gives you a little bit of direction. It makes you realize, and you see proofs. I'm just showing how many proofs there are that there's an idea of a neshama. Okay? Every single thing that you do always leaves an impact. Okay? And this is something very important for us to remember. And this I'm going to speak for a couple minutes. There's nothing that we do that doesn't leave an impact. Everything leaves a full impression that is never forgotten. Okay? It's never forgotten. The pasuk says, "Vayeshev afar el haaretz keshaya." You return, your body returns to the dust. Ve'aruach teshuv el elokim asher natana. But your ruach goes back. Every little thing that you do goes back to its sources. Nothing gets forgotten. Okay? Presently, and right now we live an active life. We're able to change, we're able to do things, we're able to do tshuva, we're able to do mitzvot, we're able to learn Torah. You're able to do what you need to do. When a person's dead, you're living a passive life. You're only receiving credit for what you did, or punishment for what you did, but you're moving from active to passive, and it's very good. And it's muchach, it's obvious that nothing gets wasted. How do I know? Because in science we know that there is no energy. Once upon a time, energy was believed that there was energy and it's lost energy. There is energy and it disappears. We all know that energy never gets lost. Koach, all energy, koach is always around. It just gets changed. Mitchalef. All koach in the world, they can heat up, they can put electricity into a whole city from a big waterfall. You can use the energy, a koach betoch mapal, you can take it and heat up A whole entire city. There is no wasted energy. It just looks like this. Sometimes transfers here. Sometimes it's in a gaseous form. Sometimes this. Sometimes there's no energy that goes. If you are on a swing, so there's a certain amount of energy there. You need to stop yourself with friction. You need the friction in order to stop yourself. You need to take that energy and you apply it to your feet where you stop yourself on the swing. All energy is always around. Af pam lo ne'ebad. It never gets lost. It just gets transferred one to the other. That's why I never understand. So a good scientist should know that if nothing gets lost in the energy in the natural world, so too nothing ever gets lost in the spiritual world. Any mitzvah I do or anything negative I do, you're going to pay for everything. You're going to pay for every one of your actions. Nothing will disappear. Every single action that you did has consequences. And hefker ba'olam. There's no such thing as something is hefker. Everything is there, and that's the Gehenim. The Gehenim is seeing it in front of you. It's there, and you feel it, and there's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. If you go to court, Beit Mishpat, so you can go and say, no, I didn't really do it, I didn't mean it, I didn't this. No one knows what you were thinking, and the action was a year ago, it was a while ago. You could say, well, it didn't really happen like this. You don't know all the details, you don't really know. Over here, it's all in front of you in one big picture. It's all there. It's in front of you. There's no changing of the time. All the time is in front of you, and there's no alterations. You understand? It's all a mitziyut that stands in front of the person. So there's no denying, and there's no changing, and there's no altering what's happening. You following? Okay, and that's this nakuda which I wanted to mention now. Okay, on the same idea of time. When we speak about time, time is a physical entity. Okay, until not, in the time of Newton, etc., time was always considered something automatic. Automati. Zman. It's something that's just there. It's always been there. It's always been around. It doesn't change. It's just something that keeps going like a locomotive. It just keeps going. There's no stopping it. You understand? Person just goes through time. Time has always been here. It's a davar shetamid nimtza. That's what it's always been, and therefore that's how it's always been. But the truth is, as we all know, it's not true. As we all know, Einstein did us a favor, and he proved that time is a fourth dimension. There's length, width, height, and time. Time is another dimension in life. It's a fourth dimension in life, correct? Time is not just something that happens automatically, it's a creation also. How do we know that? Because he proved, with the famous idea of MC squared, etc., he proved that if you go a certain speed, and you go the speed of light at a certain speed, the time becomes more, as they say, metzumtzam, more condensed. It becomes more condensed. The future and the past turns into the present. The present becomes more of a longer period of time. The more you're able to go, the more the present becomes existent, and you're able to even go back through time in an ideological way. If you would be able to go the speed of light, which you can't, but if you would be able to go the speed, if you notice all the movies about going back in time, all these interesting with the time machines, or all these ideas started right in the time of the 40s or the 50s or whatever, right when Einstein came up with his big theory. I think it was in the 30s already, right? During that time period when he came up with this theory of how time is relative, talui ala matzav, so we have discovered the idea that time can be changed. They say, and not only that, in a place where there's more mass, makom yoter gadol, in a place that it's bigger, time is slower. They said on the sun, the time on the sun is 63 seconds less than time on the earth. I don't know how they can figure that out, but I know that's a fact. That's what they write. They have a little watch over there that they're able to prove it. But places which have more mass, it is 67 seconds. It's 67 seconds less than the world, because it's a heavier thing. We know it's over 108 times the size of the earth, the sun. It's that much bigger. And the mass itself causes time to go a little bit slower. It changes the time. So we see from here that what used to be physica, what used to be physics, has turned into theology. It has turned into da'at. Something that was a physics idea has turned into something dati, something religious. It's a religious concept that time is relative, and anything ruchani, anything spiritual, lemala min hazman, is above time. It's not bound by time. The Rambam already said this 800 years ago. Says the Rambam in More Nevuchim, Zman nivra be'et shenivra olam. The time was created when the world was created. V'hu yisod Torat Moshe Rabbeinu. And that is a yisod. Bli bria en zman. Without a creation, there is no time. The words of the Rambam and the words of Einstein, mistader. Just the only thing is, people listen to Einstein. They don't listen to the Rambam. Because when you talk about a guy, right, who doesn't wear a kippah, and he's got long white hair, and he sounds very intelligent, and they have his brain in a museum somewhere in somewhere in Europe. So it sounds very fancy that, this genius, whatever he said, we believe. Okay, but we already know from before, our rabbis have told us the same idea. I also think it's an irony. Einstein was Jewish, as we all know, and you needed a Jew to prove what the Jews have been saying for so many other years. But okay, that's the way it is. You have to scientifically prove it in order for it to do it. Listen to the words of the Maharal. The Maharal says, "Ein hazman rak lidvarim agashmeim, shem tachat hazman." Only things that are physical, that has time. Aval dvarim anivdalim, things that are spiritual, lo nitnu tachat hazman. And over here we have the words of, some people are familiar with Dr. Gerald Schroeder. You're familiar? He wrote a whole book about a lot of these concepts. He tries to prove how the 7 days of creation also is, it works out well with all the theories in scientists also, about how old the age of the universe, etc. But one of the Nekudot he writes is this idea. He says that even though for 3,000 years what the cosmologists, meaning the religious, have been saying, that there is more than just 3 dimensions, now the physicists, before they say, now we have been proven that they were correct. That Hazman Gam Nivra Elokim L'Mala Mi Hazman, and Hashem is above time, because He is not bound by any type of time. Okay? And that's the idea, that Zman itself is a creation, and before Hashem created the world, there was no time. So Hashem stands above time, so He sees the beginning and the end without anything. When I was in 2nd grade, I remember a kid asking one of the teachers, and where I grew up, it was a female teacher, that he was asking her, he said that, what did Hashem do, what did God do before He created the world? He must have been incredibly bored, right? It must be very boring to be around. It's a good question for her. I don't know. I think it was okay, but she answered him, Bul Inyan. Sometimes the female teachers are better than the males in these types of things, right? She answered him on the spot, and she told him, before Hashem created the world, there was no time. And when there's no time, you're not bored, right? You only get bored when there's time, and you have nothing to do with all your time. But before there was Zaman, Lo ayita meshumam. You weren't bored. There's nothing to be bored about. You understand? Only time actually brings out the idea of them. So they talk about what was before time and after time and all that. There was no time, so there was no before and after. Okay, that's it. This al idea is just trying to say one important idea. Ein shechacha lifnei kisei kvodecha. There is no forgetfulness in front of Hashem. He sees everything like He saw yesterday to today to tomorrow. There is no difference between how much He sees. Every action is there, and that's the Nukud of Gehenim. Gehenim is, there's nowhere to run. My actions stand in front of me. I can't deny it. One time I said the mashal with a video. The idea of a person seeing the video, himself in a video, directly seeing himself do something wrong. Okay, you can't run away. There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to hide. You understand? And that's why it is such a scary thing. Okay, to be able to take each time to utilize it to its best. And there's no bigger busha, there's no bigger embarrassment than what's going to happen in front of Gehenim. Which I said we're introducing the ideas of Gehenim here, but Gehenim is physically feeling or spiritually feeling what I did. My actions are in front of me, and there's nowhere to. And there's nowhere to run and hide. There's an expression that they say, we always say, you should have arichut yamim v'shanim. The Psukim already say it he was saveh yamim v'shanim. So what's having a lot of days and years? You should have a lot of days and years. It seems a little redundant, or you have years or days. The answer is, one is quantity and one's quality. Kamut ve'echut. Shanim is you should have a lot of years. You should live to 120, as they say, right? When they say, what do you wish a person on 120th birthday? You should have a good day, right? 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 Yeah, you should have a certain, you should have a lot of years. But days is the quantity part. Not just the quantity part, the quality part. That the years should be full. Each day should be of substance. They should be something. Don't waste it. Utilize it. It's only there for some amount of time. It's going to stand in front of you on the day of din. Take advantage. There's no more annoying statement that a person can say. Has you ever heard this expression? When people say, I have 2 hours to kill, right? You ever heard that expression? I have to kill 2 hours. That's much like when you hear such a statement, it should be the same thing as a guy standing on the edge of the bridge going, I'm going to jump, right? He's on the bridge, I'm going to jump. And you go, come on, man, come on, just come here. Life is still good. I'm your friend, right? And everyone's all trying to, and then the police are all standing there wondering what to do, right? And everyone's all nervous about the guy's going to jump and he's all crying. When a guy says to you, I have 2 hours to kill, you should say, come on, man, come on, I'll take care of you. Come learn with me. You should do something with these 2 hours. What are you, crazy? You're killing 2 hours? The 2 hours don't come back. Im lo achshav eimatai. When we say the expression im lo achshav, if not now, eimatai, it doesn't mean if you don't do it now, then when are you going to do it? Kilo, your stomach. No, im lo achshav eimatai, it'll never come back. Achshav is here. It's here, it never come back again. When you lose it, you lose it. If you don't get the achshav, then tomorrow it's not achshav, it's already machar. It's already something else. It's already tomorrow. The achshav, im lo achshav eimatai, then the eimatai is the achshav is gone. To kill time, it's the most crazy expression that exists, right? Mamish suicide. It's literally suicide. Because like we said before, we're time bombs. How long do we have already? We have only so many hours and so many seconds in a day, and you have to go ahead and use it. So I heard this, a mashal once to it, that if you were in a bus and you saw the guy in front of you take a bag, and he had a bag full of shekels. I think I heard the mashal with little dollar bills, but it doesn't make a difference. And he saw the window open, and as they were driving, he just keeps throwing out dollar bills out the window. Just keeps driving and throwing out dollar bills out the window. He just keeps going out dollar bills out the window. You would go and you go, please stop. It would bother you so much. Give me the bag. Why are you doing this? You're so annoying. This and that. So too, we have only so many minutes in the day, so many hours in our life. And when you see a guy just sitting on the bus and just going like this, or even better, right? Right? Just like this, like sometimes maybe they're doing some productive, like playing a game, maybe, No, not even that, but most of the time people are just like trying to figure out what to do, like just flipping, trying to find, it should be the same, it should disturb you just as much as that guy who's just throwing dollar bills out the window, he's just throwing another dollar, right? $32,000 bill, $32,000 goes out in a day, right? How many minutes do you have in a day? It should be a certain amount of frustration, what you should get, okay? What you should get out of here. So with this, we come to the question, when people ask, is there a life after death, which is again, what we're going to be discussing. We're going to speak in detail about what Gehenna looks like, what Gan Eden looks like, Be'ezrat Hashem. Okay? But when a person asks, is there a life after death, is there something that occurs afterwards? The real answer to the question is there a life after death? It's all a matter of how you play your cards. Talui becha. It's up to you. Okay? A person who doesn't believe in the afterlife, we hold, it's one of the Yud Gimel Ikrim, that's why we're speaking about it, that if a person doesn't believe in Tchiyat HaMeitim, he's not going to be there. He's not going to get it. Okay? Someone who denies it, he's not there. It's all a matter of if you relate to it, if you can connect to it. If you do, are you focused on your body? Or are you focused on your thing? Vayetzer Hashem Elokim et Adam, afar min Adam. Adama, he created man from afar. V'yifach be'apam nishmat chayim. But we have this koach, we have a neshama, that v'yifach be'apam nishmat chayim, we received a neshama soul. And we also have a body that came from the Adama. And it all depends on which direction we take, how it is. What direction is going to happen. We all know the Gemara. The Gemara says 40 days before a person is born, it says bat ploni leploni. That who is going to have, this woman is going to go to this man, right? Bat ploni leploni. Which man is going to have which woman? We all know that's the idea of Basher to Zivug, that everybody finds that wife that he's supposed to have. Yes, that's the wife you were supposed to have. And that's how you're supposed to have it. It was already planned from beforehand, okay? As they say, like it or not, right? That's I was just being sarcastic, right? That's how it was. Bat ploni leploni. That's how it is. But you should know in the Sifrei Kabbalah, in the Sifrei of the Arizal, he takes that a little bit of a step further, and he says it's not just bat ploni leploni referring to the male and the female. It's referring to a different male and female. You know that is the guf and the neshama, the body and the neshama. Okay, because always we know that there's an or, there's a light, and there's a kli, and there's a vessel. Okay? There's a light and there's a vessel. We know that the idea behind the female and the male is that the male is the one who's able to give over potential for life. Unoten chayim. Aval zelo, it doesn't last. It won't last. It doesn't last. The only way life can last is if you have a female to capture that life, to take it and to build on it for 9 months. She can take that life and build it and make it grow and give it. That's what we call a kli. She doesn't do it herself. She can't do it herself. The point, the nakud of the life comes from the male. But the female is the one who's able to take it and build it and create life from what it is. That's the koach that's always known as the female and the male. That's always the two aspects. That's why a woman is always known as the kli, the vessel, and the man is always known as the or, the one of the light. That's what it is. It's also that way with the guf and the neshama. The neshama, the nefesh, is the point of the male. That's the point of the male. Okay, the or. And the guf, the container that contains that neshama, is the female. That's the female. Bat ploni leploni, before a person is born, Hashem chooses which neshama is going to go to which guf, which body and which neshama. There's a shidduch between which neshama and which guf. There are many neshamot out there. We all know that there's gilgulim, which I hope we're going to get to speak about Bezrat Hashem one day. There's the idea of neshamot getting a little bit recycled, but there is a decree that which neshama is going to go to which guf, and it's a perfect match. It's always a perfect match. So there's no room to complain, which sometimes we do, that go, oh gosh, right? You can't be upset about the way you look, which family you're born to, how tall or short you are, right? My metabolism, why am I darn so fat, right? Or any other things, or your parents. That's why there's a mitzvah of kibud avim. Even if you have, there's a question if your parents are rishayim, if they're evil, bad people, very bad, they do everything wrong, so maybe you don't have a mitzvah of kibud avim. But we have a mitzvah of kibud avim for any type of parent, even if he's the chofetz chaim, and even if he's your parents, right? Our parents, right? That we're familiar with, right? It doesn't make a difference. You have to respect them because they made this shidduch. They made the shidduch between the guf and the neshama. Hashem made the shidduch with this family. This is where you're supposed to be born. This is where you're supposed to come. And there's nothing to complain about. If we would know this, we would never complain. Why should I complain where I was born, how I was? It wasn't fair. It wasn't this. It's not fair with the situation. I grew up with these annoying parents, or this body which I'm not so happy with, or even your neshama. Sometimes people have complained about my personality. I got a real crummy personality. I have all these issues and things like that. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave bat ploni leploni. Just like we know your wife is set for you, so too your body and your neshama was set for you in stone. It was already there before, and there's not much to complain about. Okay, that's this idea of the connection between of the neshama and the guf. Okay, you got it. So let me just finish with this nekuda also. With the same idea is the neshama that's within you. Okay, as we know, instinctively, be'ofen tiv'i, nobody ever wants to die. Nobody can ever kill themselves. Right? A person cannot. Chas v'shalom, you should think about it, but he can't physically kill himself. And that comes from the point of the neshama always wanting to. So you're asking, yeah, it's not true. We see people kill themselves all the time. But if you notice at any time someone does it, they always resist. First of all, I heard it from a person who is a medic. He says all the time when you catch the guy who he hanged himself, it's hanged, not hung, when he hanged himself on a rope, you always see on the neck millions of scratch marks. He's bleeding all over the thing because he was trying to get off of the thing. He always pulled the noose, and he was always trying to resist himself to do that. Okay? Or, on a similar note, unfortunately, I know one person who, not a relative, but a friend of a relative, that actually did commit suicide. But they checked up, what did he do when he wanted to commit suicide? I'm afraid to speak about this on camera because people come up with big ideas. He went online to look up what's the best way to commit suicide, because he tried a few times and he wasn't so successful, because every time you beg him. So what did he do? He said the new improved way of committing suicide, right, is they figured, should I say on the camera? I'm a little bit worried. Huh? Really? No, I'm not worried. But I think he Googled it, I'm saying. It's so hard. On Google, a person types in suicide, and that's what it's not so big. He did something in the car, let's say, he locked himself up with a combustion in the car, and unfortunately, like they did in the Holocaust. That's an old one? Okay, sorry. So on. But what you need to do is you need to lock the doors and throw away the key. Like you have to make in a way that I can't open the car and the keys. I'm saying that was the chap, how you do that. You have to make in a way that the person cannot open the doors of the car. You have to do it in a way that it self-locks and you put it away that it can't be opened. So that's the chokhmah. I don't know how to make sure, because every time you do, you're going to get up. A person naturally knows to do it. If a person wants to drown himself, which is pretty bad because it's a real painful way to die, but if he wants to drown, you can't just go down. You have to. The person has to stone it and put a stone on him and make sure that he doesn't come up. Otherwise, he's going to try to surface. You understand? So that's why the more classic way is usually just jump off a bridge. That's a lot easier. Halfway down, everybody has charata and they feel bad on the way. Oops. Okay, I feel bad. They do tshuva. It's good. How do they know that? No, they really know. Almost everybody who jumps says charata. They know because the people that survive. There are some that survive, and on the way down, they feel bad that they did. They usually have charata to a certain extent until they get depressed again, and then it comes up again. But Al Kapada, I'm just saying, naturally, our bodies are always protecting ourselves. We never want to. Commit chas v'shalom. No one ever wants to commit suicide or can. The body is always trying to protect itself. It comes from your koch of your neshama that's always trying to stay alive, to be able to do a little bit more. And that's the chidush. That we can go ahead and for the right reasons we can sacrifice and do things against our teva, against nature. Okay, it's something against nature. To be able to do something which is against nature is a big thing. Here, my son just said a Dvar Torah on Shabbat. I'll mention it. Because exactly the idea. It says by the Kriyat Yamsuf that the reason why it was split was because of Atzamot Yosef, because of the bones of Yosef at Tzaddik. Even though we find other places the Yarden was split, and we find by Pinchas ben Yair that he split the Yarden. You could split waters, and over here it was only split because of Atzmot Yosef. Why? Because Yosef at Tzaddik did something ma'al teva. He did something beyond teva. After the Torah is what's able to split the sea, because he's a Talmid Chacham and he knows the Torah. But over here, by Yamsuf, they were before the Torah. So they needed Yosef not giving in to Potiphar, to Eshet Potiphar. He did something l'mal min tefa, against nature. And that's the koach of a Jew, that he's able to do things against nature. Like the Mesh Chochmah writes, two people in a house, a woman and a man, and they don't touch each other for 2 weeks. No one's looking, no one cares, no one's going to ever know anything. And here they are, the koach, it's l'mal min tefa, it's something unbelievable, that we're able to do things without anybody seeing, but we're able to, as I said about the fish, to swim up the river. We could swim up the river. When you swim up the river, when you go up the river, you see life. The person's alive. There's a neshama there. There's something going. He doesn't have to do everything up his instincts. Everything can do, he can change his instincts. That shows a little bit of life. Okay, that shows that life is still here. Okay. That's it. Let me mention one other thing with this. I'm coming to finish. Yeah, I'm finishing over here. Okay, basically one last thing with this we'll conclude. Is this also explains the idea of tum'ah, of impurity. We know with death that a person gets spiritually impure. Tumat met. Tumat met is the most severe of all tum'ot, of all tum'ah. Tum'ah means spiritually impure, correct? Okay? When someone is spiritually impure, you can have different types of tum'ah, if you touch something tameh, etc. But it comes from tumat met. And what's funny is, the Meshech Chochmah already asks us in Parshas Vayera, he says, that's strange, a Jew is more spiritually tameh, more spiritually impure than a goy. The Gemara says in Yevamot, I think it's on Samech Aleph, Atem kriyim adam ve'em lo kriyim adam. You're an adam, you become more tameh, that any type of tumah you become tameh from, by touching or by passing over him. And by a goy, he's also can be metameh if you touch him, but not if you pass over him, etc. He's not metameh. You understand? He doesn't make you tameh. You would think goyim, that's tumah. Right? Goyim is tumah. Jews, why are you making us Jews tameh? That's strange. There's something unequivocal about that. That's incorrect. That's not Peseder. Why are we more tameh than the goyim? What's the answer? A beautiful yisod, and this is a yisod we have to remember, because the idea of tumah is what we call in Hebrew a halal, a vacuum. If I had a lot of koach, a lot of potential, a lot of koach, what I could have done something, and that koach, that bekoach stops, I lose that koach, that potential, so then I leave a halal, a vacuum, and tumah kicks in. You follow what I'm saying? If I could have been doing something, I could have done so much. A person has 100 years to be able to do a mitzvah, to learn Torah, to do a tremendous amount of things. The second he dies, finished. He moved from active to passive. What we said before, he changed a phase in his life. He is no longer an active doer. He is now just a recipient. He's passive. He's only going to be getting for punishment or reward, etc. You understand? He's a passive recipient. That leaves a vacuum, which leaves place for tum'ah. There's tumah. You understand? A person becomes tameh from such an idea. So of course a Jew is more tameh than a goy. A goy he has potential also. He could be mitgayer, he can convert, and he can also do good things. He can also get olam haba, but on a lower level. A Jew has incredible amount of potential. How much potential you have? How much koach yesh? And when he dies, he loses that much more, so he gets much more of a severe tumah. You follow that? He gets much more of a severe tumah. This is a great answer for something that disturbs the women. Sometimes the women ask this, and this is one of these answers that, keeps us, what do you call it, the women chauvinists, okay? That they get all upset at us. But it's a good answer, but at the same time. So what is the answer? What is that? About when a person, when a woman gives birth, if she gives birth to a male, she is tameh for 40 days. She cannot go to the temple, to the Beit HaMikdash for 40 days. If she gives birth to a female, then she's tameh for 80 days, twice as much. 80 days she can't go, she'll go. And they go, that's really just not right. Right? Because a male, he's saying 40 days. But now it's a female, 80 days. Now we're more, there's more tumah. There's more tumah because they gave birth to a female. But what's the answer based on what we're saying here? Hear this one.
More chayim.
More chayim. That's it. That's the answer. You heard this before? No, you just got it. Yeah, you just got it. Because when you give a woman who's pregnant is an incredible level. She is almost a chelik elokam imal. It's almost similar to a godly figure. Only Hashem creates people. And here we have a woman who's pregnant for 9 months, who's creating a person in her stomach. She's not doing anything, but except for throwing up. But I'm saying bikaron, right? There's a creation coming out in her body, slowly growing, and she's creating a person. It's an incredible level. These are levels that are way beyond our understanding, right? She's being almost it can be all a little. I don't want to say it's similar to Hashem, but it's almost the same idea as a Kadosh Baruch Hu creating a person. So when she gives birth, she drops incredible. There's a big vacuum, a halal. That's it, no more. That's it. She's back to mild-mannered woman again, right? That's it. She's back to her old woman self. No big deal anymore, right? That's it. She lost it all. So she becomes tameh. That's it. So when she gives birth to a male, a male's a male, 40 days. When she gives birth to a female, there's more tumah. Why? Because she's giving birth to a person who's able to give birth. To a person who in the future will herself also be able to give birth. So she was on a much higher level when she had the woman in her stomach or the girl in her stomach. And by giving birth, there was a bigger vacuum, and that's why there's 80 days of tumah. That's good for the kid, right? Right? You hear that, your son? So you don't like it. What? No, I'm just kidding, right? Yeah, it's true. It's very nice. It's a nice thought. It's a nice thing. And the idea is very, that's the idea of tumah. Tumah is atimut. A disconnecting between two things, and that's what happens with this. I basically finish. That's why we have this idea. And one last connection to this, by the way. A nida, a woman who has her menstrual cycle, also we know is very tameh. They also don't like that. They take that personally, right? It's not so nice. But it's the same idea, because when is she a nida? When she lost a bitziyah, when she lost an egg, a potential to give birth. Every month she loses the potential to be able to give birth, to have another child. So that losing of giving birth, she's a tameh. It's a small tumah. It's not like tumah met. It's not as much of a tumah of a dead person who had so much, but it's a minor tumah of 7 days that she becomes tameh. She becomes spiritually impure for those 7 days, because that potential of being able to give birth also gets lost. But from here we see all these ideas that we're basically leading to, that we have to realize that there's a body with a neshama inside of it, with a tremendous koach. There's no maisa that ever gets erased, and the more potential we have, has to be utilized. You never have to waste a minute. A person has to be constantly be careful to make sure that he doesn't waste any a bit of that time, and through that, B'ezrat Hashem, you'll be able to understand and connect to be able to do that. One last, I was trying to remember, one last bit. How does a person who's tummy become pure, by the way? Why are we tummy? We're tummy when a person dies because of Adam Rishon, because the chet of Adam Rishon, right? How to become pure? You have to go in the mikvah. What's so special about the mikvah? The mikvah comes from water that's not mayim she'uvim. It's natural water, which was not touched by man. It has to be not drawn water. It has to be completely natural rainwater, or river water, or ocean water. It has to be completely natural water. No connection to man. no male connection, no man connection. You go in this water, which is completely natural, and you put yourself in what? In a state of death. When a person's in the water, you cannot live there. You can't live there for only so long. So you put yourself in a state of death and come out, and you are what we say a katan shenolad. It's kilu, you're born anew. You're born as a new person. You go into the natural world and you come back, and then you're able to purify yourself from the tumah. The tumah, all the potential I had, I lost it. I became tameh. You left a vacuum, you became tameh. You have to purify yourself from that by going back to the natural world, to the olam hativ'i. Make yourself kilu dead and bring yourself back to life. That's the way you're able to correct what you did. You follow? Okay? You follow that? Let's say it. Adkan. Believe that we have one more shir, which will be words of introduction to Gehenna and Olam Haba. I think it'll be only one more shir, and then we'll start speaking about details about Gehenna and Olam Haba. Okay?